This is Sick and Wrong, the world's source for antisocial commentary. Brought to you by adamandeve.com.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How's it going, man? Thanks for being on the show today.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. How's everything on the West Coast?
I'm doing all right over here in Los Angeles. It's kind of early in the morning, but good to catch you right before the weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about your new show. I mean, I read about this the other day. I was really excited. I was always a huge fan of To Catch a Predator. We discussed that show many times here on our program, so I was excited about it. So Hansen versus Predator. You have a Kickstarter currently going. How much money are you trying to raise, and when's the due date?
Well, we've set the goal at $75,000, hoping to far surpass that. The due date is May 15th. We just started, so we're on day 3. And it's very exciting. You know, this is my first run at crowdfunding, and Kickstarter is a great outfit to work with. And, we started thinking about doing another Predator investigation, several months ago, and we started talking about how to do it and what's changed since we did the last investigation. And the whole playing field is different now. When we did the first investigation, we basically had decoys on Yahoo and AOL chat rooms. Well, today there are so many different places, not just Twitter and Facebook, but Instagram and Snapchat and interactive gaming. Everything. Tumblr, Kick. I mean, all kinds of places where kids can get approached. On top of that, remember when we started this, most people were on laptops. Now everybody's got a smartphone, so it's ubiquitous. And so, the other thing that was happening is the question that I was getting most on social media, whether Twitter or anything else, is when are you going to do another Predator? We're signing a petition for you to do another Predator show. So, I kind of felt the time was right, and I started talking to my guys over at William Morris Endeavor, and it turns out they have a whole section just dedicated to not just digital, but crowdfunding. So we decided to go that route, let people who are asking for it most be involved, be a part of the process, and help us do it. And it's going really well so far. Yeah.
Well, so is the show going to have a similar format as To Catch a Predator, but it's going to be on the Internet?
Well, it's going to be Hansen versus Predator, and we're going to go out and shoot it, very soon. And we will initially distribute short segments digitally, and we're in talks with some digital distribution companies right now. And then we'll repackage them for broadcast. And we're talking to some folks on that as well right now.
So, but it's going to have a similar strategy where there's going to be a decoy.
Yes,
undercover
absolutely.
house.
We'll have decoys. We'll have, we'll have better technology just because, we can find out more about people in advance. We have many different ways to communicate with people. We have, better cameras and microphones. I mean, things have really advanced since we did the first one in 2004.
Well, I guess that kind of leads to my next question. Like, do you think this strategy to catch the pedophiles will be as effective now? Now that, To Catch a Predator is a meme on the Internet. South Park even did a parody. Don't you think they've caught on?
Well, I don't, because the activity continues. I mean, remember that, even in the later stages of the original investigations, we had situations where, I'd walk out and the guy was, putting his marijuana on the counter to show the decoy, and he looks at me, and before I can say a word, he said, "Well, you're Chris Hansen." And I said, "Well, yeah, how'd you know that?" He said, "I watch the show all the time, and when I miss the show, I download the episodes on the Internet." So, it became this situation where even though people knew that we were out there doing investigations, they also know that the police and the FBI are out there doing them every day. The FBI a few years ago caught a prosecutor in a sting down in Florida, and, they're putting the cuffs on him, and he said, "Where's Chris Hansen?" And they said, no, it's not one of his. It's just an FBI investigation. He goes, "Oh, shoot, got him."
That makes it sound like they're doing this just to meet you.
No, I think it's a problem, and I think law enforcement agencies all around the country, try to do the best they can to police it. But when you consider how many people are online at any given time, how many ways there are to communicate, it's virtually impossible to monitor this in any really effective way. It's just like monitoring Craigslist. I mean, if you consider, there are internationally some 60 billion posts on any given day, and 44 people working at Craigslist, as helpful as they are with law enforcement, it's impossible to monitor that.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're going to employ some new techniques here, and not just catch the sexual predators who don't own a TV, or who are just like at low intellect. So, how much evidence do you need though to convict these guys of a crime? That's the one thing I always wondered about when watching To Catch a Predator. Like, has a crime been committed if there's no sexual contact?
Well, in most states, the actual solicitation of an underage person is committed actually online. So in the vast majority of cases, the transcript that I would have of the chat, or that the police and prosecutors would separately have of the chat, provided them by the decoys, would be enough for conviction in court. We probably had around 300 men surface in our investigations. Of that, some 250 were prosecuted. Remember, in the beginning, the first two investigations, there was no police-prosecutor parallel investigation, even though some of those guys were successfully prosecuted. But in all the cases, once the police and prosecutors came along, each case that was prosecuted was successful, but for one that I know of where there was a dismissal. The rest were either guilty pleas, no contest pleas, convictions by a judge or jury, and the sentences range from probation and registration as a sex offender up to 24 years in prison.
All right, that's what I was wondering, is if these allegations can stick. I mean, because a lot of those guys, and I've seen some of the guys, at first, especially when you come out and interrogate them, they're like, no, it wasn't me. I didn't write that. And I'm just wondering if they deny it and just say, it wasn't me. Someone borrowed my phone, or someone, hijacked my computer. I'm just wondering how they can stick, because if you don't have them on camera.
Right. Well, there are ways, and technology exists where they can confirm, that somebody was on there.
IP
and
address,
obviously when right, exactly. And again, could somebody theoretically be on somebody else's email? Sure. Could they hack into it? Sure. But then why are you, sir, actually standing in this kitchen?
Yeah, there's a reason why you showed up today.
Right, right. So you're right. I mean, actually showing up, really makes the case solid. The solicitation, that you can make a case, but when the guy shows up and in the text says, I'm going to bring X, Y, and Z, and he shows up at the house and he has X, Y, and Z, that's a pretty solid case.
So how do you respond to the criticism that it's entrapment? That the decoys were led on or goaded by the predators to have the decoys were goaded. The predators were goaded by the decoys into having like a sexual conversation.
Sure. Well, it's not, because there was a very strict protocol in place where the decoys went into the chat rooms and didn't make first contact. I mean, they went in there with a profile that included a picture that was obviously underage. They waited until somebody approached them. The potential predator had to raise the specter of sex first, and then the conversation continued. And yes, they would invite them over, but the protections were in place so that, somebody who didn't intend on doing anything wrong was, goaded unfairly into doing it.
Yeah, that's the one of the things I was wondering about. Like, were you ever worried for the physical harm of the decoy? Because you had these girls that were, they look like they're like 14 or 15, but they're probably 18.
No, they were older, and they went through some instruction, and obviously we have a lot of security in place when we do something like this. So yeah, it's edgy. I worry about everybody's safety, but I also worry about, our crew's safety when we do a story on, bike thieves in New York City. We did all these predator shows. We've been around the world doing all kinds of hidden camera investigations, really edgy stuff. And the two times, most recently, that I almost got, hit was exposing a counterfeit Mophie salesman in a mall in Connecticut and confronting a bike shop owner who was buying hot bikes. So you never know, There I am thinking, okay, we'll wrap this up and take the crew to lunch, and suddenly I've got this madman chasing me around, threatening to hit me. So, you never know, but, I think we have always and will continue to take the proper precautions to make this absolutely as safe as possible.
So where were you hiding when the predator's talking to the decoy, and what was your cue to step out and confront him?
Well, the cue was different in every case. I kind of just had to feel, when the timing was right, and obviously we wanted to get, as much interaction between the decoy and the potential predator as possible, because that shows motive, that shows intent, that shows
incriminating.
Yeah, exactly. And it also gives me more to talk about than just the transcript, which, in most cases was certainly enough. But I would kind of, get a feel for it, and I was watching on a monitor, or several monitors in a room that was close by so that I could get out. And the whole thing is blocked out, so it's, there's protections and safety for everybody. But, you go, sort of get a sense of, okay, this is it. It's time to go.
I got to say, some of those interviews are cringe-inducing. What do you think the most disturbing one that you've ever had? Like when you walked out, you saw this guy, you started talking to him, and you're like, oh man, this guy's just, he's a real bottom feeder.
Well, it's about 100-way tie for first. I mean, it's so many were so disturbing on so many different levels. I think the one that stands out was in Fort Myers, Florida. We were working on a Sunday, and it was the last guy due in for the investigation, and he was there to see, I think, a 13 or 14-year-old boy. And he pulls up in an SUV, brand new SUV. The guy's probably in his late 30s, early 40s, and he goes to the back door of the SUV on the driver's side. He opens it, and the assumption is he's going to grab pizza or beer or whatever he's brought, and he takes his 5-year-old child out of the car seat and leads him by the hand up the driveway. And there was a collective gasp that came out of everybody's mouth. Now, realize that these guys who work with me on these projects have been with me in some of the darker corners of the world, doing all kinds of different investigations. And so nothing much shocks them, but this people were in tears over this.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine it's hard to be desensitized to that.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't think he was going to involve the child in anything he had planned to do with the teenage boy. He was probably going to put him in a room and put a video on. But the fact that he would bring the kid, it turns out his wife was at work and he was, in charge of the child for the day. So he walks in. Now I've got to figure out, how am I going to handle this without traumatizing the kid? So he walks in and I walk out and I said to him just, straightforward, look, I know why you're here. You know why you're here. This is who I am. Because your son is with you, I'm not going to put you through all this. So why don't you just get on your way? I said, thanks very much. A big misunderstanding. I said, and obviously he was arrested and child services was called. But, that was probably one of the toughest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, that definitely is disturbing. I mean, some of the guys, obviously most of the guys are like, good, I'm glad you're getting arrested and you're getting off the street and you're going to be incarcerated. But there's a couple of them I actually kind of felt a little sympathy for. Did you ever have that feeling where you're like, man, I can tell you're not that bad of a guy and you just really screwed up?
Well, I think so, and I think those guys were dealt with fairly. Look, I think it comes down to 3 different categories. They're the hardcore sex offenders that are going to be doing this no matter what, with or without the internet. And those guys can't be fixed. Then there's a more interesting group in the middle who, have a predilection towards this, but probably wouldn't act upon it without the internet. The addictive nature, the 24-hour access, and the anonymity that it provides. These guys would not say any of this stuff face-to-face, but they would say it, on the internet. And I think there's this other group of, I'm not defending them, but, early 20s, kind of awkward, kind of shy. They're talking to a girl who's, 14. Obviously, she's underage. It's wrong, but, in 7 years, nobody would care about the age difference. And they go for it. And I think those are the guys who probably can get, a slap on the hand, a little probation, and a promise of never doing it again. And I think in that category, I think a lot of the guys would never do it again.
I mean, I guess that's what I wondered. Like, do you think, public humiliation on this level is the best way to treat, and not necessarily treat pedophilia, but deal with pedophilia?
Well, I think to discourage predatory behavior is probably a good way to put it. But, look, I tried to have a real conversation with these guys. And I know it creeps somebody out that I would say that about somebody who's capable of doing something like, these guys are capable of doing. Mm-hmm. But the reason why the vast majority sat down and talked to me was because I didn't go tisk. I said, help me to understand why you're here and what's going on. Because if you can better understand what's going on in one of these guys' minds, you can better protect your children. And I truly believe that, whether it's, online predators or financial predators or, scammers who are going after your grandma's money. you need to understand how the brain works, and then you can teach your children how to protect themselves.
Yeah, I think that's what I valued most about the interview portion of the show. Is I mean, you were actually genuinely interested why the guy showed up. I try and do that.
Yeah, but I try and do that with any interview on any topic. I mean, that's the key to making it interesting. I mean, sure, were there comical moments? Did I say some things that are, a little smart alecky? Of course. I just didn't want every interview to look the same, but I tried to keep it absolutely appropriate for the situation this guy put himself in, and I think the vast majority of times we did. And again, it goes back to, anybody can jump out of a bush and scare somebody and chase them down the street. This was an attempt to have a meaningful conversation with somebody who, was doing something that could harm a child.
Yeah, I mean, you were engaging rather than lecturing.
Well, that's what I tried to do. I mean, clearly, when somebody says, "Well, I came here because I thought the house was for sale," I'm going to take them down on that because I've got the transcript and I know the house isn't for sale. And I'll say, "Well, who told you the house is for sale?" "Well, my friend." "Well, who's your friend?" "Bob." "Well, what's his cell phone number?" "Let's call him now." And little by little, the story unravels. But that's part of the art of the interview.
So how often did the guys try to escape? Because I mean, are they required to take a seat and chat with you?
No, absolutely not. I'm a reporter. I'm a TV guy. I'm not the police, and that's what I always say when the guy says, "Can I go?" I said, "You're free to leave. What's going to happen to you next?" I said, "That's not up to me." Even though I know, the police are outside and they'll arrest them. At that point, it becomes a police investigation, not my investigation.
And the police are just waiting outside. So who notifies them that, okay, this guy's on the loose, he's running?
Well, typically what would happen is, in the case of the original investigation, the online watchdog group would, supply us with information we needed to do our investigation, and separately supply the police and prosecutors with the evidence they needed to do their investigation. So once the guy, leaves our our house, the police obviously have set up a command post, and they have a protocol for, safely arresting these guys and, getting them booked and through the justice system.
Did you ever encounter any of the predators? Did you know any of them personally?
No, thankfully.
That would have to be the worst, because then you walk out and it's like your uncle or something.
That'd be bad.
My final question here: how often did the predators get naked? Because I remember one particularly uncomfortable, disturbing episode. The guy was completely nude. You had to hand him a towel.
Oh, yeah. 2 occasions, the guy came in naked. Once in Herndon, Virginia, and once in Fort Lauderdale. No, it was Fort Myers, Florida, I believe. And it was stunning. I mean, unbelievable. You think you've seen everything. We had a doctor, we had a rabbi, we had a teacher, we had a military intelligence officer, then a guy who walks in naked. And at no time during journalism school at Michigan State University was I trained to interview a naked man during an investigation, and
got to be jarring.
It is. It's a little bit jarring. I mean, it's like, how does this happen?
So I got to say, I went to University of Michigan, so
rival. I'll let you slide, even though.
Better journalism school is for U of M.
Michigan State. My youngest son is at Michigan State right now studying journalism.
That's a great school. I
so is Michigan. I know we have a rivalry and we tease, and my sister went to Michigan, and so we you can imagine on the Michigan State game day it's pretty brutal.
I saw your report on Detroit too. It's very interesting. Well, what do you think the future holds for that city? I think
the future is quite bright. I mean, obviously, Detroit was in a tough place and has been for a long time. When I did the story, Dave Bing was the mayor, and he really, really worked hard to try to turn things around, but he faced a lot of obstacles. But he got it to a point where the current mayor, who's being very creative and very aggressive and courting a lot of business, is really making headway. And I got invited back this past fall as one of 150, former Detroiters to be a part of this program and learn what's happening there. Warren Buffett was there, Dan Gilbert of Quicken Loans, all kinds of people, the Ilitch family. I mean, people are investing billions of dollars in Detroit, and it may take a while, but I think it's really going to turn around. And you remember, the city of Detroit proper is surrounded by some of the most beautiful, affordable suburbs of America.
Yeah.
And so if you can link that and you can link the different parts of Detroit, and the biggest problem is, or one of the biggest problems is, they had so many abandoned homes and buildings, vacant lots. I mean, when I did that story, the amount of vacant property and abandoned buildings in Detroit added up to the size of the city of Buffalo.
Yeah, that's staggering.
So think about that. Now they find a house that's in shambles, and they find the owner. They write him a letter, say, look, you got 30 days to clean it up, pay the taxes, or we'll tear it down. They tear it down. They put a note on, the good houses on either side, say, for $2 you can buy this property as long as you keep it clean and stay within the zoning. And people are doing it. People are going online and buying abandoned homes for $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 and fixing them up. And you're going to start to see over a period of time, I believe, combined with the kind of money and support that the Detroit people are putting into it with money, and Roger Penske and as I said, the Ilitch family, who owns the Red Wings and the Tigers and Little Caesars Pizza. I mean, these people are dumping a fortune into the redevelopment of Detroit, and it's going to be good. It's going to take some time, but I truly believe it's going to be good.
Would you ever move back?
I'm so centered out here on the East Coast. I mean, I would love to have a presence there. My mom is there, and I would like to figure out a way to have some sort of a production facility there to support Detroit and to keep ties there. I mean, I go back all the time, and I'm very active at Michigan State University still, and so I would like to. I don't know that I live year round there, just because for work I need to be on one of the coasts. But it's a great place to live. Listen, I grew up in the suburbs and was a reporter in Detroit for 10 years, so I know all the shortcuts.
Yeah. Oh, Chris, thanks for taking the time to chat with me.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it very much.
I just want to put people out there. Please donate to the Kickstarter for Hansen versus Predator. You have about a month left, maybe a little less. I think you're doing a service to society, and I hope you never ask me to take a seat. So,
me too.
All right, take care.
All right, thank you so much. Bye now.